Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my Doctor Who Season 13 ranking, where we'll be ranking one of the best seasons of Doctor Who so far, Season 13. Now to my mind, Season 13 is almost perfect. We've got 2 9 out of 10s and 3 10 out of 10s in this season. There's just one thing that's stopping it from being possibly the best season of the show, and that's a really awful 2 out of 10 story. In my opinion, I know some people might like it. So, yeah, so it's almost perfect. I don't think it's the best season so far. If I opened with that, I'm sorry. I think Season 7 is still the best, because that still has 4 amazing almost amazing stories in some cases, but 4 great stories. And I also think Season 12 is slightly stronger. Slightly as a season, although the stories in this one are better than some of the ones in the other one. As for future seasons, we'll see. So let's crack on with this ranking. So I'll just let you know the stories. So we have Terror of the Zygons, Planet of Evil, Pyramids of Mars, The Android Invasion, The Brain of Morbius, and The Seeds of Doom. So let's not waste any more time. So let's jump right into the list, starting with number 6. The only story that is not great. In fact, the only story that I don't even like. Not only do I not like it, but I find it the worst story since the Space Pirates. I think it's still better than the Space Pirates, but it's easily the worst one since then. Even worse than Colony in Space. So, yeah, this is it. And considering not only is that a massive disappointment, but also, the other stories in this season are amazing. But Planet of Evil is not. So, my number 6 is Planet of Evil. Yeah, I know some people might like this one, or do like this one, but to me, I just can't stand it. I've already explained in my review my problems with it. I don't really like it. I do find the sets for the planet, actually, they look pretty decent. They actually look pretty good. The spaceship just looks business as usual, so design looks okay. I just don't like the story, and I think the majority of the supporting characters are not that great. There's even this one guy who's supposed to be comedic relief by the looks of it. He gets a few mutterings, mumbles, moaning about a few things, and then he gets killed. So, yeah, I don't know whether he would have been that good of a character if he had more time. I don't know. I don't really care. I just didn't really care about this one, and I just didn't like it. So, yeah, I talk about it a bit more in my review, explain what I don't like, what I do slightly like. But, yeah, I will say Part 4 is slightly better than the other ones, but there's still quite a bit of problems with that story. Namely, the captain, the guy who's in charge of the rescue ship. I mean, once he's when an older guy takes over, I mean, his second in command takes over, the guy who's in charge, he just goes mad for no reason whatsoever. So that's my main problem with episode 4. But there is some other ones. I don't know. And yeah, so yeah, like I said, I've got go and watch the review / rant, and you'll get more problem. I'll tell you more about the problems. I'll just use those other ones as examples. But there are some good moments, good stuff in it. It's like the set design for the planets, for the ship. It looks like it's business as usual, but effective. The planet looks good though, and the acting from Tom Bacon and Elizabeth Sladen is still really good. It's just, I've got quite a few issues with it, so, yeah. Let's move on. Number 5. Now, Planet of Evil, as I mentioned, is the only one of this season that I don't like. The rest of the stories are amazing. So it pains me to say that number 5 is my least favourite of the remaining 5 stories. The Seeds of Doom. Before I rewatched the story, I actually found it to be one of the most overrated stories of the show, alongside Genesis of the Daleks, before rewatching that one, and Midnight, which I will rewatch. But yeah, Seeds of Doom is actually really good. It's really enjoyable. It's got some great stuff. Has a great horror, mystery, sci-fi thriller, two-parter, and then it goes into a bit more of a spy thriller later on. So yeah, that's really cool. I just don't think it's as enjoyable or as fun as the other 4 stories on this list that we've got to rank. So the top 4 stories. But I still consider it a very high story. It's got some great stuff. Scorby is one of the best henchmen of the show, at least of the Tom Baker era. Not a fan of Chase, though. I found him the weakest villain after the Planet of Evil ones. He's okay, though. I don't hate him. And it actually makes sense for him to go mad. For starters, he is actually a bit mad anyway. Second of all, he gets possessed by the Krynoid, and his motivations sort of make sense. Similarly to the Krynoids, their motivations make sense. So it actually so him going a bit mad in part 5, part 6, or he's not being himself, makes sense, as opposed to what I was talking about with Planet of Evil's guy going mad for no reason whatsoever. Literally no reason. Just, I don't know, he just went mad. Chase, on the other hand, it makes sense. And, yeah, got some great characters and some great action moments and some great character moments. And the 4th Doctor is, wow, he's really great. I'm certain this story was supposed to have been a John Pertwee script, but it was decided against it, and then they brought it back for a Tom Baker one. That, or they wanted to make the 4th Doctor a bit more action-packed, get him to shout a bit more. That being said, I can, actually only imagine Tom Baker delivering those lines. Maybe a very angry David Tennant or Matt Smith or Peter Capaldi. Possibly Colin Baker if it wasn't for the fact that he's generally grumpy quite often in the show, at least. Same for William Hartnell. So out of the classic Doctors, Tom Baker, and maybe John Pertwee if he was in a very bad mood. But out of the classic Doctor, and same for Sylvester McCoy, but out of the classic Doctors, Tom Baker would pretty much fit that role. But I would also, but besides him, I think Eccleston, Tennant, Smith, and Capaldi, especially Capaldi, would be able to deliver such a great, some great lines as well. And like I said, maybe Hartnell or Colin Baker if it wasn't for the fact that they were so grumpy or cross quite a bit of the time. Anyway, but still, Seeds of Doom, really enjoyable, some great stuff, and it's really good. It's also a little bit long. I think it could have been 5 episodes and it would have been fine, but oh well, it's still really great. Number 4 is this one was actually my number 1, but it went down because there are 3 stories that 2 of them went up in an opinion, and one I just preferred more. They all went. The other top 3 went up. It's just that one of them was already a pretty high one. The other 2, slightly higher in opinion. This one, it's more of an enjoyable one. It's a good story, but it's more of an enjoyable adventure. Fun fact: it was supposed to end off season 12, which makes a lot of sense, but due to I think scheduling or production problems, it was pushed back to the start of this, which makes a bit of sense. Though, as I mentioned, I would have preferred it to end off season 12. I mean, look, we actually ended off on... Oh, well, and that season probably would have been 6 stories as well. They would have gone to 6 stories with that season. But anyway, this story, still fun, really enjoyable, and really well written. It is, of course, Terror of the Zygons. Yeah, the first of the 2 Robert Banks Stewart stories, and the second that we've mentioned after the Seeds of Doom. I do think Banks Stewart is a good writer. It's just that there's better stories on this list. Similarly, Terror of the Zygons used to be... It was my favourite of the season, but after these rewatches, it's now jumped down to 4th. But I still find it really fun, really enjoyable, and such a great story. So, yeah. Even though it's 4th on the ranking, it's still a really highly regarded story. Same with Seeds of Doom. Even though that's 5th, I still highly regard it. Like I mentioned, I regard 5 out of 6 of these stories in this season. So they're all the top 5 I hold in very high regard, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were 5 of the top 10 Tom Baker stories. I would not be surprised. Maybe two of them, these two, actually maybe not Seeds of Doom, but this one and definitely the top three. Maybe this one as well. I wouldn't be surprised if these 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe not 5, we'll see. But definitely quite a few of them. But yeah, Terror of the Zygons, really fun and enjoyable. Number 3 actually hasn't moved from my pre-rewatch list. It was originally third, it's just that the score has changed for this one. It did slightly bump up to 2 for a bit, and then it bumped back down to 3. But that's pre-rewatching my number 2 choice, so... But yeah, number 3, I find is a very good story. I do have some sort of personal problems with it, like I had with Genesis of the Daleks. Not as bad, though. But, again, I can put them out the way, and it's for story purposes, and, you know, it more than makes up at the end. So, still really good. Brilliant. Number 3 is The Brain of Morbius. Another classic. This season's full of them. Even the ones that some people wouldn't regard, and maybe one that I wouldn't as well. But The Brain of Morbius is still a great story, and has some great moments. Solon is one of the best villains. I think he was my favourite villain of the... No, Philip Maddock had the best performance of a supporting cast member, but he's not my favourite villain of the season. Neither is Morbius, but I still find him a great villain anyway. I would like to have an adventure with Morbius before the events of this story. That would be a good story if we could have a prequel or something at some point. I know Big Finish have done a sequel of some, sequel audio, or audios, but so I would like to have a prequel at some point. It might be fun. But this story, it's a great story and has some great stuff and going for it. And introduces the Sisterhood of Khan. That's really great. And some more Time Lord mythology, even though some of it does get squindled. I think that's the right word, squatted. Basically just chucked out the window next season with the Deadly Assassin, basically establishing Time Lord mythology, and regeneration and stuff. But despite that, there is still quite a bit of great stuff in this one, and still holds on as a really good one. And hey, it's Doctor Who meets Frankenstein, except not the real Frankenstein, or his monster. They met a robotic version in the chase, though, so there's always that if you prefer. But anyway, The Brain of Morbius, brilliant story. Number 2 is actually a surprise. Well, probably would be a surprise to most people. Number 2 is one most people would probably have expected prior to, unless they've seen the reviews, but may have anticipated this being my least favourite. But actually, I found I had hardly any problems with it. Only a few nitpicks, but that's basically about it. And the same would go to my number 1. I just prefer that story over it. But I think number 2 is pretty much perfectly executed, as well as perfectly scripted. There's only those very few issues I had with it. Number 2 is The Android Invasion. Yeah, I'm surprised too. I didn't think this one was going to be that great. I thought this would be second least favourite, maybe, after Planet of Evil. And if you hadn't seen the reviews, maybe you would have thought this one would be my least favourite. Unless... the Planet of Evil review title does slightly give it away. But besides that... But no, I really enjoyed the Android Invasion. I found it really great. I found it really enjoyable. Fantastic direction from Barry Letts. Well, that's to be expected. And a great script from Terry Nation. Again, to be expected, apart from Destiny of the Daleks and Death to the Daleks. But besides those two... and Mission to the Unknown, but that was technically a prologue episode and also a Doctor and Companion night once again, so that one it's not exactly in the same league as Death or Destiny. So, but still, other than those 3 stories, this is Terry Nation has consistently wrote great ones. So, and that is also including Keys to Marinus. I thought that was my favourite from season 1, and that was great. Again, that one wasn't quite a 10 out of 10, but I still found it really great as well. A really great story. And this one, again, just because there's no Daleks in it doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, Terry Nation wrote an android in one of his Dalek stories to chase, and I think that was great practice for this story. And he gets to use that idea a bit better. We even get Android Doctor and Android Sarah Jane, and it's really great. So yeah, Android Invasion, really great and really enjoyable. And it also, like Seeds of Doom, has quite a bit of action in it, so you can actually be forgiven for thinking this was going to be a third Doctor story. Although whether the third Doctor would do as much action himself as the fourth Doctor. I mean, yeah, he would have the karate chop and the kung fu moves, but would he jump into a lake like this story to hide from some androids, or would he jump through a ceiling just to rescue Sarah Jane, as seen in Seeds of Doom? Tom Baker's got some great action scenes in this season, and he's really great in all of them. So more of this, please, if we can. And yeah, so Android Invasion, it's got some great stuff. Number 1, on the other hand, I just find it's an amazing story, as well as amazingly executed, and it's just really well put together. And this story contains my favourite villain of this season. Number 1 is, of course, the all-time classic, Pyramids of Mars. I would be surprised if anyone had put something other than this. Well, maybe if they put Brain of Morbius. But other than Brain of Morbius, I'd be surprised if someone put something else than Pyramids of Mars as their favourite from the season. But it's Pyramids of Mars is a great script, and we've got some great characters, some great acting. I would say Gabriel Wolf is the second best supporting character, playing the best villain, and the guy playing Lawrence is the next best supporting character, then, and also the guy playing Marcus is then the next best after him. They're all great. This also discludes the Brigadier, Benton, and Harry, by the way, this supporting characters. Although I do also love the supporting characters in Terror the Zygons and the Brain of Morbius, and Scorby from Seeds of Doom. Not so much. There's a couple I'm not so keen on in that one, but Scorby is certainly a brilliant one. And maybe one in Plans of Evil, but only in the last 2 episodes. In the other 2 episodes, it's not that great. But yes, Pyramids of Mars, just great stuff, some great brilliant stuff, and Tom Baker and the same give 2 of their best performances. Although I do love Tom Baker's performance in Seeds of Doom as well. And yeah, but I think this Pyramids is possibly the best. Maybe not of the. It's either the best of the show. I think I mentioned that in the review. If not, then second best after Genesis. I think they've. Yeah, I would say they've got the groove by this point, and they've got this dynamic that's from Plans of Evil to Seeds of Doom. They've got this great dynamic. I mean, we saw the dynamic as early as Robot Ark in Space, but Harry was also there, and so it didn't really shine as much, apart from in a few scenes together, like in Ark in Space. But since Plans of Evil, the 2 of them have been able to work off each other really well, and it starts to shine more. It starts to shine in Plans of Evil, but it gets to a really high level by this point, and then that just keeps staying strong throughout the season. And it just really works really brilliantly. So I'm happy to say that Pyramids of Mars is my favourite story from season 13. And yeah, and this is a widely regarded classic by most people anyway, from the show. So yeah, even more so than Brain of Morbius. So yeah, that's about it from me. Thank you for watching. I'll go through the list once again. Number 6 is Plans of Evil. Number 5 is The Seeds of Doom. Number 4 is Terror of the Zygons. Number 3 is The Brain of Morbius. Number 2 is The Android Invasion. And number 1 is Pyramids of Mars. And like I said, apart from Plans of Evil, I love every single story. Seeds of Death, not as much as the other 4, but certainly a lot. And the top 3 are all 10 out of 10s. And yeah, for the first time we got 3 10 out of 10s in a row. In fact, we got 2 10 out of 10s in a row, then a third one. So yeah, we haven't had that in a while. Actually, no, had the invasion following the Mind of Eve, the Mind Robber, and those were both 10s. Okay, but we haven't had 3 in a row until now, so that's great. And like I said, I also really loved Terror of the Zygons, and I also loved Seeds of Doom, not as much as the other 4, but still really good. It's just a shame Planet of Evil was so terrible for me. I mean, I know, like I said, lots of people, other people would probably like it, but I don't know what it was. It just felt awful. And sadly, for me, it's the second worst story of the show at this point. I mean, I don't like Hellbent either. I think that's even worse. Again, not as bad as Space Pirates. That is definitely the worst. But I think at this point, Planet of Evil might be my 3rd least favourite overall. But again, there might be some other Tom Baker stories that I would like less. Maybe some other Doctor's stories that I would like less on rewatches. But at this point, Planet of Evil is one of my least favourites of all time. It's probably going to stay that way. Whether it's second least favourite at this point in the show, 3rd overall is may change. I don't know. I just couldn't stand it. But everything else was near perfect. In some of them, they were perfect. So I don't know. Did we just have a massive misstep in an otherwise amazing season? I'm just I don't know. It's like last season where we had a bit of a misstep with Revenge of the Cybermen in an otherwise great season, with 2 8s and 2 10s, and then we get a 5 as well. Yeah, that was odd. But oh well. Then yeah, not every season is perfect. Every season or every. Then again, every season and every series has its ups and downs. Look at season 17. I'm not a big fan of that story, but we still get an outstanding story, and and Sharda I bloody love as well. But I don't know if you count that or not. So I'll mention that as well. The outstanding one is City of Death, and the rest are good at best, I would say. If not, then okay. But we'll get to season 17 in a bit. Anyway, so that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for the start of season 14 with the Mask of Mandragora. Hope you enjoyed this ranking, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. First of all, we have... So let's waste no more time and jump into the list, starting here. So let's know... Excuse me. But the Brain of Morbius is still a really good. But would he jump into a lake, or would he jump through a glass roof like in Seeds, or the lake in this story? Yeah, jump into a lake like in this story. Got some great stuff, and so yeah, Tom Baker's got some great action scenes, and Tom Baker's got some great action scenes in this story, and it's just really great, and he's. I wouldn't be. So I'm happy to claim Planet of Evil. Number 5 is the Seeds of Doom. Number 5 is the Seeds.